News with Gina.
The News with Gina Grad.
Well, let's start with Mark, so it'll be a nice, smooth transition when he calls. Deadline.com reports that Mark Geragos, who helmed the Kaepernick case that was confidentially settled for what some estimated, as I said, could be as much as 60 to 80 million, told CNN his client absolutely wants to play. The Panthers signed Kaepernick's fellow collusion case partner Eric Reid to a 3-year contract recently after picking him up 4 games into last season. The Panthers have a liberal owner and may be without a resident quarterback, Cam Newton, who just had shoulder surgery in late January, so that's a possibility for Kaepernick. Here's a clip of Mark talking to CNN's Anna Cabrera about who else might want to pick up Colin.
I think the issue was hijacked by the president. I think that people kind of cowered in the face of that. And I think ultimately, at the end of the day, there was a brave voice, brave 2 or 3 voices in various spots that said, no, America is better than this, and we're going to do the right thing. I think you're going to see. I'll make the bold prediction. You can save the tape. I think you're going to see within the next 2 weeks that somebody's going to step up. Somebody's going to do the right thing. And you want me to predict too? I will tell you, besides the Panthers, it would not surprise me if Bob Kraft makes a move.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I would. That would not surprise me. And it would not surprise me if his former coach, I'll test your knowledge, also makes a move.
I don't know that one off the top of my head, and I got to wrap it from here. Thank you, Mark Geragos.
It's funny when
Harbaugh?
When
Detroit, Patricia, right?
I said Beverly.
When you're going to
Beverly Patricia, yeah.
interview, it's funny, like before you're sitting down with the Mark Geragos hit, you're doing the interview on CNN or ESPN or whatever, and then sometimes the sound guy comes up and starts clipping on stuff. If you're interviewing Mark, you can just pass on the lav mic for the person who's interviewing him. And if you're doing that with me, you can pass on the guest being mic'd. He just goes.
Yeah.
He just
There's a lot to say.
Goes. That'll be interesting. And then now the other part is Kaepernick is now sort of independently wealthy. One could do the math on that. So
more than we think, because he's black. He's coming from the bad critics.
Right. If he's a blue-eyed guy like you,
absolutely. All
right.
But
he doesn't. So now he doesn't have to do it financially, for sure. He probably didn't. He never had to do it, but I'm saying he had the Nike spot, blah, blah, blah. But he really doesn't have to do it now. And it's a dangerous game.
I'll lay any odds on him never playing in the NFL again. It's not going to happen.
By whose authority?
That's
his or somebody
else's? No, it's just not. Here's the craziness. Whatever collusion may have existed, the owners get on the same page, whatever may have happened or may not have, is silly because every team, it's reasonable to assume individually they wouldn't want that circus. Can you imagine the day that Kaepernick, the Redskins would sign Colin Kaepernick? The media frenzy that would descend upon that.
You're worried about me? We're called the Redskins.
But the media frenzy that would descend. ESPN would melt. The Twitter would go crazy.
But if you win games, nobody cares.
But also,
only a bad team would sign him.
That's what I'm saying.
That's not
he's not going to be
true.
a Patriot.
A good team that is down a quarterback, like the Panthers, aren't a bad team, and I think Cam Newton's going to be completely healthy. But January shoulder surgery should certainly mean August health.
I guess it's his right arm or his throwing arm. I agree with Brian in that this is not a Belichick situation because he doesn't like that. But if you're a team that was horrible and you're looking for something.
Back to the Redskins, they who were on the same team at one point, Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick. Alex Smith, mobile enough for his age. He's mobile. He can get out of the pocket. He can move. Certainly Colin Kaepernick could play for the Redskins, but would they ever want that circus in the middle of the season? I can't see that.
I don't know about the middle of the season because they could.
What about?
I don't know.
What about the Niners?
I don't know. I don't know if we're in a post-Kardashian era where I don't know if there's any circuses anymore that anyone.
Taking it one step further, Geragos did come on this show 2 years ago or whatever it was and said within 10 days Colin Kaepernick will be on an NFL team. And so I think he's grinding the organ a little bit.
You never know when he's been drinking now.
Yeah.
Like to have a bend the elbow.
Can't beat off on TV.
Colin Warwick, I think.
All right, sorry.
Colin Kaepernick's last year that he played, he had 16 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Let me get this crap out of my mouth.
He's a talented dude.
Yes. All right.
It's like, well, he's just not that good. Same thing they said about Ray Rice because he had 800 or 700 yards rushing when he punched out his old lady. It's like, yeah, if you knock out your wife, I'm going to guess your job isn't doing too good either. It's like the worst year of your life if you behave that way. Because Ray's a good guy. He is a good guy.
I don't know.
I do know. And he said, I'll work and I'll give all my checks to women's charities. You don't even have to pay me. It's my passion. Well, running backs, they get older. I'm like, he's 28 and he's like 1,200, 800. He's done?
Is he out of the league?
Oh,
He hasn't
yeah.
been in the league for
Way
2-3
out.
years, yeah.
It's funny.
He's so out of the league, he doesn't even work there anymore.
I'd like to get Ray Rice together with the professor who was like attending a conference in San Francisco or something, and as the elevator was going down, he went to 8th floor, ladies' lingerie, and then that bitch dropped the dime on him, and then he got fired from his job. I'd like those two to end up on the same bench.
Hey,
the
that guy
same
lost
bus
his
stop
job?
somewhere and go, what happened?
Where you headed?
I had
That guy
an
lost his
incident in an
job for
elevator.
saying
What
women's
did
laundry?
you do?
Tell me about it.
What'd you do to get fired?
It's pretty ugly. You may have seen the tape.
I threw a stiff right and knocked my old lady out. What'd you do? I made a joke about ladies' lingerie
That
from
guy
a
got
Bugs
fired.
Bunny cartoon. Yes, JayMohr, let me finish, please.
Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry. I didn't want to.
No, I'm finishing
apoplectic.
my thought.
Of course.
Unfortunately.
No, it's your show, baby.
I know, but you can't keep going while I'm going. You got to stop for a second. Just want to finish
You know
the
what?
story.
It's
go.
a lifelong problem.
Now
of mine.
go.
I'm sorry, and you're right. You're
Yes.
right. A guy got fired for saying this floor women's hosiery, or
Yeah,
Yes, lingerie. Making a Bugs Bunny cartoon joke.
She felt threatened in the elevator. because-
Ned LeBeau, professor of political theory at King's College in London.
fatso.
I'm just saying, my fantasies, it's called bus stop bench, and we just get two people fired. They're both fired in an elevator, basically, for activity unbecoming in an elevator. One guy balled up his fist and crushed the orbital socket of his girl. The other guy made a Bugs Bunny joke. They're both out.
Persona non grata.
Equally
That's
bad.
right.
At the same bus stop as a realtor.
All right.
Well,
Simona Sharoni, professor of women's and gender studies at Merrick in Massachusetts. Oh, it's such a combination of coups. God, those people got to be, you have to be miserable. Don't you have to have a miserable life if that's what you do? Like,
it seems so.
You're a 50-year-old woman. This guy made a Bugs Bunny cartoon, and now I'm sending
on the warpath.
sternly worded email to who?
Yeah,
God
good point,
damn.
too.
Yeah.
He said that like the Great Gazoo.
To who?
Oh, hello, Dum Dum.
I think that's when the Flintstones jumped the shark. He had an alien buddy who flew around next to the Great Kazoo.
But first, they gave Barney a kangaroo.
Hamp. Oh, yes.
Like, if you had a pet, the ratings will go up. There's a laugh track on a cartoon.
All right, Gina, what else?
Well, Jussie Smollett is no longer considered a victim in his assault case, according to a Chicago police spokesperson. Police said the trajectory of the investigation shifted after they questioned two Nigerian brothers who were released from custody Friday night without charges. TMZ says the brothers, who worked as extras on Empire, completely cooperated with authorities and apparently claimed they were paid $3,500 to stage the attack.
Each?
Jury's out. Now,
it's a weird
police,
number to whack up.
Yeah. Now police want a follow-up interview with the Empire star before a grand jury hears the case early next week. Jussie will most likely face some tough questions as evidence reportedly mounts against him. Now, according to TMZ, quote, at least one of the brothers turned over his phone, and there is a call between him and Jussie in the vicinity of the attack before it happened.
Hey, why'd you beat me up?
Right before. Don't beat me up. Sources tell the gossip blog that when police raided the home of the brothers, quote, they found magazines with pages torn out. Now, why that's significant? Remember the first time we talked about this, the authorities are now trying to determine if those missing pages are connected to the threatening letter that was sent to Jussie 8 days before. And we showed that letter, the cutout magazine
ransom note
letters.
style.
There's also evidence that the brothers had purchased rope used in the alleged attack. So, I mean, this is unraveling.
They didn't steal it,
Yeah. We have...
Hey, Adam, it's Norm.
I got the... hey, Norm. Sorry.
So they say Nigerian brothers, huh? I don't know. I'm no chunk of coal, That's Nigerian brothers. That seems redundant.
Yeah, because they're brothers.
Yeah.
Like
Well, they say
soul
brothers with no R.
Hold on. Geragos is on line 6. Sorry.
Turn
Norm.
off my mic, please.
Mark Geragos?
Apparently, I just referred to JayMohr as a good kid. How old is Jay?
He's younger than us, but older than most.
48.
Right,
48.
older than a kid.
48.
But what's the outside limit for when you can refer to somebody as a kid? Does it have to be like 10 years younger or more?
I think as long as there's a buffer of a solid 15 to 20 years between you and them, you can take it to your grave.
Yeah, there's a crotchety level, too. Like, if you're crotchety, it's less.
Yeah, I've been accused today of being jolly for the last 3 days. Very jolly.
Goddamn! I was walking my dog past your house the other day, and I was talking to Dr. Drew about this situation with the NFL settling, and he just went, "We're in the wrong business." Which is, I agree. He's a fool. He's trying to help people.
For a lawyer, there is no better, at least in my crowd, the ultimate is when you're on the front page of the sports section as a lawyer, because we're all failed jocks and failed athletes. That's why we're in the law, because nobody wanted to do that first. You wanted to be a superstar athlete. So if you can somehow make it into the sports section, you've arrived.
Mark, so a couple of questions have been running through my head. I know we can't talk about the actual amount, but can we talk about some of the other nuts and bolts?
Can we first talk about the fact that your tweet that got more action than virtually any other tweet, and I've sent that screenshot of your tweet probably to 100 people whenever they ask me about it, because I obviously can't talk about it. And for those who haven't seen the tweet, which got retweeted hundreds, if not 1,000 times, was Adam saying something to the effect of, "I'm walking over to the house with a bottle of Don Julio. We'll see about that NDA."
We're going to get to the bottom of this thing, man. Which I say in jest, but not really, Mark. I mean,
in a bottle.
Do you know how many people said to me, is that all it'll take? I said, yeah, the financial penalty, is kind of gets diluted by the Don Julio, especially if it's 1942.
So when we had talked coming up to this on this show and on Reasonable Doubt, Saturdays on iTunes, Podcast One app as well. We talked about you were doing depositions with Roger Goodell and Jerry Jones and all the players, the major players. I don't mean the players on the field. I mean the owners and heavy hitters in the league. I think from what we talked about, you'd gathered enough stuff to make the NFL very nervous about going into the courtroom with you. When was the trial set for?
Well, let me tell you what I think I can talk about and break it down. In a civil case, there's a kind of a pivotal point in any civil litigation. In fact, one of my favorite phrases is, don't start planning anything until after we survive summary judgment. And the reason for that is you can file a lawsuit, you can roll a lawsuit out in any case, and when I say lawsuit, that includes, in this case, an arbitration or any other case where you may have an arbitration. Summary judgment basically is after you've done discovery, all the stuff that you talk about, depositions and interrogatories, and you subpoena documents, and you go through all of that litigation nonsense. Then usually the defendant, the person who's being sued, will file what's called a summary judgment. And that basically says, hey, judge, here you go. This is the universe of what's been developed in this case. And even if on their best day, they're never going to this will never get to a jury. It never should get to a jury. They haven't proven anything, or they haven't proven enough for it to get to a jury. As was disclosed by the system arbitrator back in August, we won the summary judgment. So that puts you, if there's a shift in power in any civil litigation, when the plaintiff wins and overcomes a summary judgment, that means that you've got the power position at that point. Now, I can't talk about the settlement or anything else, but I will tell you that I think at a certain point, in all cases, there's a time when smart parties will settle a case. I mean, there's always, I've settled cases in the middle of trial. I've settled cases while the jury's out. I've settled cases after the jury's come back. I've settled arbitrations in the middle of arbitration. So there's always some point and some factor, whether it's a witness who testifies and gets destroyed, whether it's documents that a judge won't let in, or I've had the instance where a judge has limited what a witness can testify to. There's always some pivotal point where both parties say, okay, we're at the point where we need to do it. In fact, there's one of my favorite stories was there was a judge who was on the bench. He's now a mediator and arbitrator, Alex Williams, and he used to famously say, and he's right, that a trial means that one of the other party is an a-hole, and I think that's true. Basically, a trial is one side has decided they're not going to compromise and they're an a-hole. And so at a certain point, if you can get two reasonable people together, they can usually settle a case.
It was on you. If you can't answer things, don't answer things. My take is that the NFL was never going to go inside of a courtroom with you and your client, that they were just sort of kicking the can down the road and seeing how things played out. But at some point, they were going to sort of break the glass and pull out the emergency checkbook. They were never planning on going into the courtroom. Is that a fair statement?
I know. I can't answer that.
Okay,
I can.
I
of course it is.
Hypothetically, two reasonable parties will come to a resolution because it reduces their risk.
How does Kaepernick play this? I'm going to ask a tough question. He was there as a social crusader, and he's not crusading. He's getting paid now. So how is this spun for him?
Well, the interesting thing about that is, and in fact, I did a TV interview and I explained it this way. The difference between a criminal case and a civil case. Criminal, you're fighting about somebody's liberty. So you're taking a stance. You've decided to go to trial, whether because whatever you've done, whatever act you've done, you either believe that you had a right to do it, if it's self-defense, for instance, in a murder case, or if you're a female who's battered, you've got a battered wife syndrome or something like that. You take a stance and you're fighting over your liberty. Civil, all the other basic cases are civil, which is basically fighting over money. That's all it is. I mean, what you do when you bring a civil case, when you invoke an arbitration, when you go to a mediation, there's only one thing you're fighting over. It's money. You don't get. I tell clients this all the time. I can't go in with an Uzi and take hostages. This is a civil case. It's just writing a check. One of the reasons I still do criminal defense is because at a certain point, fighting over people's money every day or all the time tends to drain you. I would rather fight over somebody's liberty. I think it feels better at the end of the day, because fighting over money at a certain point, I don't know. It brings out in a lot of cases it brings out the worst in people.
Well,
and so
can I say this?
Yeah. What were you going to say? I was going to step on you.
I stepped on you, but what I'm saying from a philosophical standpoint, Alec Baldwin, he hosts Celebrity Match Game so he can get paid, so he can do a bunch of indie films where he doesn't get paid. Is it fair to say Mark Geragos has cases like this so he can represent the Armenian kid who's being charged for murder instead of vehicular manslaughter and doesn't have the funds to pay for Mark Geragos?
I will talk about it and I just had this discussion with a close relative who will remain nameless, that there are certain cases that, and I've always said that we have somewhat of a Robin Hood practice, and I am at an age where there are certain cases I will take that will help support other cases that I want to try, and so there are cases that I want to try. I saw a case today where a 11-year-old was berated by some substitute teacher because the kid didn't want to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I mean, that's the kind of case that just rubs me raw. I mean, instead of some teacher using that as a I hate to use this term, as a teachable moment, or at least having a discussion and getting the kids to defend the position or attack the position logically and with some kind of discussion. The teacher, I think, suspended the kid or got the kid expelled or some nonsense like that. Those are the kind of cases I'd rather spend some time doing. I mean, at the end of the day, when you're fighting about other people's money, the money gets paid out and you put it in your account, or your wife spends it, or your kids spend it, and there's not much left.
All right, so this is kind of
the government taxes you.
Well, so you go, again, it's like, all right, George Clooney, what's he doing making Ocean's 13? It's like, well, he's getting paid so he can do all the indie films that are better. That's the Mark Geragos. And I was thinking about
George Clooney also said, somebody asked him recently what his next movie was, why hasn't he done a movie lately? And I think his quote was almost directly, "Why do I need to make a effing movie? I just sold my tequila company for $1 billion."
He's got F me money.
Right.
Sore winner.
Yeah, that is F me money, and he did very well with that tequila company.
And now Mark's got F me money as well. Although I was thinking about how much you have to pay in taxes. I thought that must.
It's enough to get I was looking at some of the Gavin Newsom proposals this month and thinking that Florida seems like a nice place to visit and maybe take up residence.
My sad thought about this whole thing as I walked Philly cheesesteak by your house while it was raining yesterday was Mark's made a boatload of money. B, I know how he feels about the state and taxes. C, sadly, he's going to be driven to Florida or parts of Mexico, perhaps, after this settlement. Mark, thanks. I'll show up with the Don Julio and get some real answers.
Can I ask him one thing?
Wait. Invite me back in the next day or two, because there's going to be a next chapter in something else that I think you guys will want to hear about.
I'd like to hear that. JayMohr has a quick question.
Hey, Mark, respecting
Hi, Jay.
Hi, buddy. When you go, hypothetically, to court for something, who knows, what is your responsibility to prove or to, put everything in? Is it like that a person was kept from wages they absolutely should have earned? Is that
generally in a civil case, the standard of proof is one of two. It's either preponderance, which I always define as like a scale of justice. You just tip one side more than the other, or it's a standard that's called clear and convincing, and it depends on what it is. Clear and convincing and preponderance are, if you look at a glass of water, and a full glass of water, not overflowing, but a full glass is beyond a reasonable doubt. Preponderance and clear and convincing are less. Take a big swig, that's probably clear and convincing. Take a second slug, and if you're more than half a glass, you're preponderance.
We're going to do that to Don Julio and get the truth out of you.
Preponderance of truth.
Yeah.
still don't know what it is.
You're not going to have over half a glass, I'll tell you that right now.
I think that what Jay is saying is something we talked about before you came on the air, which is your case was not that Kaepernick has a better arm than a lot of guys in the league. Your case was the league was colluding to keep him out of the league. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair, and that's why I always.
I didn't know we were speaking freely now. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement.
All right, thanks, Mark. We'll talk to you soon. When are you going to be back in town? I'm not kidding about that.
I'm hopefully back to be in studio for Reasonable Doubt.
Okay.
Best hour in the universe.
Thanks, buddy. He'll tell us more about some of the new breaking stuff coming up as well. All right. We're talking about Jussie and I had and the brothers from Nigeria. I have clip now. So I don't like this because I don't like. I believe that the narrative that we're living in a racist, homophobic world is completely and insanely damaging to anyone who's gay or black and gay. It's the worst thing you can do to someone, which is tell them they're not wanted in this society. So the narrative that we hit drives me insane. But what really drove me insane is when the guy was turning himself into a hero. And I have a clip from, I guess about 4 or 5 days later, Jussie was doing a event here in Los Angeles, and we can hear him up on stage. Sorry.
Be as black, be as brown, be as gay, and the fuck you want to be. Now is the time. Be blacker, be gayer, do it right the fuck now. I love you.
Guy's got a potty mouth.
Yeah.
No wonder he got attacked.
Yeah, he's telling everyone they need to stand up for themselves.
How do you get blacker?
That's a good. Oh, ask D.L. Hughley.
Yeah.
He got a lot blacker over the last few years.
He's got the suit.
He's
an OG, but he is an OG. Like that's
where
he's from.
He wasn't Malcolm X in 1997.
No, I know, but that's what I love about DL. Like he played it the way he had to play it to get where he is, and he's like, guess what, America, you love me. This is who I actually am, a black guy.
Yeah.
I realized I was talking. This is stupid.
All right, what else we got?
Blacker.
Well, from what
be gayer.
what Geragos was referring to about the student, a Florida mother.
Oh, there's a student. We got the story.
Yeah, right here. A Florida mother is upset after her 11-year-old son was kicked out of school, suspended, and arrested after refusing to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Those are fat wrists.
The boy said the flag was racist and the national anthem was offensive to black people when a substitute teacher asked him to stand for the pledge on February 4th. The teacher wrote in her discipline report, What if it was so bad here, he did not go to another place to live? And the student replied, they brought me here. The substitute continued by saying, well, you can always you can always go back because I came here from Cuba, and the day I feel I'm not welcome here anymore, I will find another place to live.
Christ is a Cuban.
She wrote that she then called the office because she didn't want to keep dealing with this student. According to the arrest affidavit,
I got about 30 things to say, which is everyone just sit there and just get through life. When you get through the fifth grade or the third grade or whatever, just please, just it's part of being a kid. Yeah. There's an element. I have to deal with my goddamn kids every day. There's an element of because I said so. Right. Just it's the one day you'll be 18, you'll get to make all your horrible decisions in front of people who don't give a shit. But for now, just stand up, put your right hand over your heart, pledge your allegiance, and sit back down again. I know we're living in this. By the way, it's these kinds of stories. It's the Kaepernick story of the take a knee and the oppression and the cops and the target on your back and the crime of being black and gay and walking on the streets was enough to get him attacked by hoodlums. Blah, blah, blah. That's why 11-year-olds are taking. It's this crazy narrative which is causing all of this. And of course, it's going to cause other people to overreact and take the wrong angle and run. It's basically, it's like a tussle with the cops. You can get shot. And then you'll go, why did they have to use so much force? It's like they didn't, and they did overreach. On the other hand, yes, sir, no, sir. Get your warning and drive away. That's another direction to go in life for folks.
Well, according to this affidavit, the student was arrested by the school resource officer.
See, they've overdone what this guy started.
Because he refused to follow the commands. They say repeatedly called school leaders racist and was disruptive and threatened to get everyone fired and to beat up the teacher. Okay. The student said he never did that. The mom is horrified and everybody's freaking out. He's suspended 3 days. He was taken to juvie. It's a whole thing.
Juvie. I miss juvie.
I know, me too. And I miss the word jive.
When I was a kid, there was always someone that had like an older brother named Kurt. He was in juvie. And you're like, oh, man, that guy's bad news.
Just the lore of juvie.
He's in juvie.
Yeah.
Oh, Kurt's in juvie.
This teacher failed adult. Like if there's a course that you could take on just acting like an adult. Because as an adult, you just should never argue. Mm-hmm.
Jesus. Like and now Geragos is on this. He's going to turn to Malcolm J.
from
Israel.
Cuba, and if I don't like it, I can, if she had just said like, well, my bosses tell me that this is what we have to do every morning. So if you don't do it, I get in trouble. And the kid goes, F you or whatever.
Here's the problem. Everyone's empowered now. There is no authority anymore. The authority is F you, and it's all off, and there's going to be more and more of this.
Come to the wrestling room, Ace. I'll show you some authority.
Well, that's what I mean. Like that's why I like team sports. I love wrestling. I love all this stuff.
They can walk out whenever they want. They don't realize it's voluntary.
Punch Whitey in the ribs.
Keep running. All right. Dopes.
So she's Cuban.
Yeah.
Good. All right, and a lady.
A lady.
Woo. Woo.
Sweat off your brow.
Right,
Dodge.
because if this is a
Oh
dude,
boy, you'll shut down Florida.
if this is Larry the Cable Guy, then we got to burn down all the convenience stores, right?
Right.
But she's a chick, she's Cuban. Okay, we can move on. We can move on.
Close one.
This was this close to making the news, but now it's not really. See, here's the choice. We have to sit around at MSNBC and decide this is a story or not. And we're not going to do it based on what happened to the kid. We're going to do it based on the intersectionality of whoever suspended the kid. And the Cuban and the female, it's good for like half a cycle, but it's not good. It's not, it's not white guy.
Not above the fold.
It's not straight white guy good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Well, as I say, Geragos has a case that nobody's heard of. Nobody's heard of Carver, the guy in Arizona who was executed in a hallway of a hotel by a cop with an automatic rifle, basically with a military weapon, assaulted while crying, while laying on his belly in a hotel. He was executed by a police officer. He was executed while begging for his life and laying on his belly with a guy who had like a military weapon with, I think inscribed in it was like, I don't know. God,
Lay on your belly and feel my lead.
It was really
I can do better than that. I'm sorry.
What was inscribed? Yeah, it said "You're effed" was inscribed on it. That guy executed a 26-year-old guy who was laying in a pair of shorts begging for his life. Neither here nor there. Not part of the news cycle. Not a good enough example of police brutality.
The ultimate
executing a guy who's begging for his life, laying in the hall of a hotel in a T-shirt and gym trunks. That's not going to do it.
What hotel, though? You know,
no,
that's seedy.
Daniel Shaver. That's another client of his, and cop's not found guilty. Okay, is that going to make the cycle?
Should.
Is that good enough? No, that's not good enough. That's not good enough.
Wait, if he's on his, that means he got shot in the back.
He laid on his he
On his
laid
belly.
on his face, and he begged for his life.
So that means he was shot in the back.
And he cried and begged for his life.
How the fuck are you not guilty of shooting somebody in the back?
They executed
body
him.
cam footage
They
of it.
executed him. And I don't want to watch it because it
What kind of
is
a cop doesn't turn off
pretty
his body
upsetting.
cam
in a
footage?
world where we inflate everything. This takes no inflation, and it's the worst cop killing ever. As I've said, the reason you can't do worse than this in the cop execution department is because you can only tie. There is no such thing as a guy laying on his belly, crying and begging for his life, and you executing him in a hallway where you have 6 other cops standing there, and this guy's in a pair of gym trunks laying on his belly.
Not a threat.
No, but it's not news. Not to CNN. It's not news. Not to Fox. It's not news. Not to MSNBC. It's not news to anybody. Not news to the Los Angeles Times. It's not news.
Just to play,
I don't know.
Just to play groundlings here, like, just let's go around the horn. Like, what do you think the cops around them said right when the gunfire, that eerie quiet after like, da, 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 da.
Oh, God.
Like, what do you think? Like,
They're
the cop
praying
said?
there's a gun
Who
on
wants tea?
All right, but it's not
All right,
news.
or,
You guys
you know,
never heard the story.
Don't take
you
a
never
shot
heard
at my
the
comedy
story.
game.
Does not fit the criteria for a story.
You guys icing me? You guys icing me?
Are we icing you?
Yeah. I thought I was right up your alley. Like, you know, what do you want the cops say?
It's such a, you know why? It's such a, it's so horrific
Of
that
course
even
it is.
I can't screw around with it. Like, it's such, if you see the tape, if you ever hear the audio of it and see the tape, you'll be,
It's haunting.
It's just
Pretty
haunting.
upsetting.
It's
Now I feel
upsetting.
bad.
It's upsetting. But you
I don't
won't
know who
see it on the
Jussie
news
Smollett is,
because
so I feel like a dummy.
doesn't work with the narrative. There's no other greater example of the narrative because they have body cam footage. It went to trial. It's everything you need if your theme is cops. It is nothing you need if your theme is cops hunting black people because then it flies in the face of that theme because they're hunting white people in this case. All right. Let's see. Shot 5 times. AR-15. 26 years old. Okay. What else you got, Gina Grand?
Well, TMZ reports that Anthony Weiner, haven't heard from him in a while, is no longer behind bars, but the ex-U.S. congressman still has a few months in federal custody before he's totally free. Law enforcement sources tell TMZ Weiner's been transferred.
I hope he's put on like 4 pounds or something.
He is spindly.
That guy put on some weight.
Out of a Massachusetts prison and into custody of a Bureau of Prisons residential reentry center. So like a halfway house, I imagine, or some sort of home confinement.
Oh, that's where all the pussy is. What are the idiots? Those chicks can't wait to fuck.
If you can't remember what happened here, Weiner started serving this 21-month prison sentence in November of 2017 after pleading guilty to sexting with a 15-year-old girl in North Carolina. He was slated to get out in August, but for good behavior, they moved it up. And this wasn't just sexting wasn't this like the fully exposed crotch shot with his sleeping son laying like right next to it? Like it was a weird, unfortunate picture.
Something for scale, and you don't want to use a dime.
You would use a toddler?
Coke can.
Well,
or the remote.
Whatever's close by.
No.
I love
He's
you,
out.
Brian.
It's so weird to me. You know, there's something attractive to Bezos about this, and Anthony Weiner. Like, I don't get it. Like, I don't get that. I need to do this and share it with them. Like, it's such a weird impulse.
But this guy, I was just going to say, this guy has like a compulsion problem. He was the one, Sydney Leathers and. Yeah,
he tweeted
Carlos Danger and the entire Democratic National Party, the entire Democratic Party. Huma Abedin, his wife, was basically in charge of Hillary Clinton, and he can't stay out of the news.
You'll never convince me that there's not a component to people of I want to get caught, like I want something bad. Like it's I've been sexting and I'm going to leave my phone on the coffee table and let my wife find it. Like guys just wanting out. Like what do you? I mean, Dr. Drew would say, well, that's why it's a disease or whatever it is. But I mean, it's just crazy what people will do. And you know my saying, whatever happens to you, you will do it to yourself.
Yeah,
think about
your own undoing.
All of these stories, it's all something somebody did to themselves.
I'm not making kids blow me in the woods.
That's right.
Like bullshit on that.
All right, where were we? Do one more, Gina. Go ahead.
All right. Well, Dr. Drew might want to weigh in on this at some point because Los Angeles County health officials said Friday that bringing cats in to deal with City Hall's rat infestation would only spread the fleas being carried by rodents.
Somebody on the city council's like, well,
Herb Wesson.
Why don't we get cats in there and
not just cats.
They can eat the mice. They can eat. It's sort of like when you see, and now I guess it's one of those things where we get older. Like when I was a kid, like politicians were just dignified and they knew worldly and like they knew something. And now you see that guy from like what's his name from Virginia, and he's like, I could do the moonwalk for you. I took some shoe polish. I didn't put it on my face. Well, I might put some of it on. Put a little dab under my, like a lamp blackout, like when you do NFL guy players, on a sunny day, like that. I was a big Michael Jackson fan. Like you start going, these guys are babbling imbeciles. Like a lot of these guys, it's a sad realization that you realize that a lot of these people seem clinically insane.
Oh, speaking of which, did you see the video of the, I don't know if he's a congressman or representative, he's blind. I believe he's from Virginia. Chris, maybe you can help me with this.
Oh, he got busted for blind face.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
There's a picture of him not being able to see.
Go home, everybody.
It's from high school, but it still counts.
He has a cane.
He is
That's
insane,
the game winner.
and I would be surprised if everybody wasn't opening an investigation on this guy.
I will look for him.
He said, he's not against gay people, but he's against LGBTQ. And the interviewer said, "What if one of your kids was gay?" And he said, "Well, if my son was gay, if my daughter was gay, I would take her to get a manicure and take her to get a pedicure and have a nice day, and then see if she could swim."
Throw some battery acid in her face, like my dad did to me so many years ago.
Yeah.
Well,
and
look for that.
He said the same thing about his son. And she goes, "What do you mean, see if he can swim?"
He's
just
blind,
saying, see
right?
if he
You
can
said
swim.
I mean, that's the whole thing is that he's blind.
I mean, I guess.
So, I would think the visceral disgust that ignorant people have to gay people is the actual optics of
he
gay
can't
guys
have optics.
like walking down the street. He has no concept of what gay people look like. If he's in government, he's not around them. Like maybe 3 times in his whole life, somebody's like, "Are you guys ready to order?" And he's like, "What the hell was that?" Well, that's a gay person. They should die, Charlie.
Eric Porterfield?
Sure. That
Virginia?
Right. The video
He
is
lost his
very
eyes,
weird.
his eyesight? Cock. That's why he's so angry. Somebody knocked his eyes out with cock. And ever since then, he vowed to be against them.
At least it makes sense that way.
Thank you.
Yeah. I always think about, who is that congresswoman from Florida who wears crazy hats? I always think of her and my crazy. She hasn't been on the news for a long time.
White
She's
lady
a
or black
proud
lady?
black woman of color just always wears like a crazy pink cowboy hat. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Hold on.
And Congresswoman.
Frederica Wilson. I always, whenever I see her, I'm like, what is she? She's like one of my mom's crazy friends from when I was, not my mom had friends, but like when I was in high school. Like, what? Oh, now we got the blind guy.
You gotta see
All right,
this.
we'll play it. Let's listen to him. He's blind.
Quite.
He doesn't.
He's wearing the MAGA hat.
He's wearing the MAGA hat.
You have a adorable daughter and a precious son. What would happen if a few years from now, when they're teens, young adults, they came to you and said that they think that they might be gay or lesbian?
Well, I will address my daughter first, as I would take her for a pedicure, take her to get her nails done, and see if she could swim. If it was my son, I would probably take him hunting, I would take him fishing, then I'd see if he could swim.
What do you mean you would see?
Creepy.
This guy's got a crawl
mean?
space.
See
He's
if
John Wayne Gacy if he was blind. This fat fuck
what
with
does
his
that
boobs
mean?
and his pasty white skin and his creepy smile of a serial killer that touches kids has some nerve being against anybody.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's who they voted for. Is there been a bigger divisive word than West?
Is there,
Virginia, West Virginia.
She did ask him to clarify, and he's like, I'm just saying, see if they could swim. As in, what, throw them in the pool and drown them because they're too little to learn how to swim?
Yeah.
That sounds to be what he's implying.
He's going to kill him in the ocean or
I could see if they could swim.
Is that the first time that occurred to you?
No, what occurred to me is like a witch hunt, like the well. Put them in the well.
See if they float.
Still drowning.
Yeah. Not there's no happy version of see if they could swim.
Talking about
take them down to the Y.
Get Jonathan for lessons.
Put floaties on them.
No, I was thinking, but I was trying to think specifically, like. Right. You know, historically, like you said, like if someone said that chick's a witch, we'll see if she can swim, like something like that.
Right.
Same thing, yeah. Specific.
Yeah, I assume take her to the river.
Pretty gross.
If she floats, then she is not a witch like we thought. What song? A down payment on another from Salem's Lot. Serve the servants. Nirvana.
Oh, it is.
Wow.
How about my singing started to suck right when you guys all looked at me? I'm like, a down payment. Hey, lady. How about Ed Norton?
All right, one more, Gina Grad.
Well, we were talking about the Oscars, and let's just wrap this up in a bow. After a huge backlash, the Motion Picture Academy has decided not to cut 4 categories from the live broadcast in order to cut down on the show's runtime. So they had made it clear that this is how they were going to.
You had me at some of those, but not hair.
Yeah, that's absurd.
I didn't need, like, they're like cinematography, special effects, or whatever, and then hair. And I was like,
there's like 40 sound awards.
Yeah, but hair and makeup, I mean, people do seem to love the transformation. You know, when you see Christian Bale turn into Cheney or whatever, people
not
like that.
Congressman who was on that
That's
local
true.
talk show. He's not a fan of that category.
You're right. Well,
I get the turning Christian Bale into.
He's not blind. He's like horror movie blind.
Yeah.
Like some people are just blind. You're like, oh, wow, yeah, he's a blind guy. He's holding on to a railing. And then other people are blind, and when they look at you with a goofy smile, you're like, oh, my God.
He's looking through me.
Are we filming it?
Yeah.
Even though he's blind, he looks through you. Exactly. You crystallized my thoughts.
How are the Oscars going to make reparations to people like me who made a huge bet on whether we'll go under 3.5?
Wow.
After this information came out, I made a massive bet on will they go under 3 hours.
What are the
good point?
What are the categories? Sorry,
I got screwed on this.
It is going to be back in the show, live action short, cinematography.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Live action. Is it just me or a live action short, animated shorts? Like, I don't know, 7-minute animated, whatever. Do we need that at the Academy Award level?
The thing about that is, I get the quote unquote minor categories, I'm making air quotes, but like the short films, the live shorts, and most people, the vast majority of people cannot see these. Like they can't go to the theater, they don't go to film festivals, they don't live in Los Angeles or New York where they're playing these at, granted, very small cinema, like very small theater. Like these are not accessible films.
Yeah.
And the only animated short anyone knows about is whatever they play before Pixar.
Yeah.
Right. So all right,
animated short
and
is to me, it's like Olympic diving.
Yeah.
Like I can't tell the difference between the first place dive and like the 20th place dive.
No.
Yeah,
it's
that's
like,
true.
whoa,
I can't either.
See his toes when he went in the water there.
Editing and makeup and hair. as one category.
All right, you can get rid of the shorts for me.
So they've been they would have been put back later in an edited form of the telecast. And George Clooney, Brad Pitt, big celebs criticized this and really put the heat out. In a statement, the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences said, quote, "All Academy Awards will be presented without edits in our traditional format. We look forward to the Oscars." But before that,
I'd like to separate makeup from hair because turning Bale into Cheney needs recognition.
Not the skull cap.
Just hair. Yeah. I don't know if that's part of hair, but either way, it's over his hair. I don't need hair and makeup. I want hair and makeup. I want hair gone.
Right, you want it separated.
You just want it longer and longer,
and then
man.
you cut hair, and then we'll have makeup.
But if you have, like, best foreign film, then foreign film shouldn't be nominated for best picture. I'll take your thoughts off the air.
That was deep.
All right, let's bring it home.
You got it. I'm Gina Grad, and that's the news.
I'm not making kids blow me in the woods.
That was the news with Gina Grad.